Hello everyone, this is the second part of my Metro 2033 retrospective. Last time we saw Artyom get separated from his buddy Bourbon, later to meet Khan, who leads him into Ghost Tunnel. I hope you enjoy. Ghost Tunnel is infamous throughout the Metro. Few people have the balls to test themselves there, and almost none manage to return. It's a home to mysterious shadows, ghosts of the past which induce terror and insanity on their victims. This is how you get introduced to them. According to Khan, these shadows are the souls of the people who brutally died in the tunnel, either during the apocalypse or shortly after, but nobody really knows. Glukovsky doesn't make it clear in the books either, so the best we can do is speculate. The phenomenon bears a striking resemblance to the nuclear shadows of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which are thought to be created by people and objects who shielded the surrounding architecture from being irradiated and bleached by nuclear fission, in a way etching their last moments in stone forever. A similar concept is applied to the shadows of the Metro, except they aren't just locked in there spatially but temporally as well, being forced to live their final moments over and over again. So in a way, the shadows are a representation of both the unthinkable dimensions of destruction caused by nuclear weapons and a metaphor for the isolation that the Metro creates. There is nothing beyond this. You cannot leave while you're alive, and you especially cannot leave once you die. And as Khan puts it,
Heaven, hell, and purgatory were atomized as well. So when a soul leaves the body, it has nowhere to go and must remain here in the Metro.
it's quite difficult to create terror in a shooter like this, especially when the player character just single-handedly took down an entire legion of monsters or armed men. One way to do it is through psychological means, to create a source of fear that you can't just shoot with guns. A kind of fear that is mostly in your head, despite the fact that you are under no real threat to speak of.
Light work, no reaction.
Fortunately, Ghost Tunnel is just a teaser for this kind of horror that Metro would be capable of, both later on in this game, but especially in the sequel. For example, a bit earlier, you are subjected to a more subtle form of horror, such as the effects deeply embedded within the sound mix of some buildings.
Disgusting!
These are the type of sounds you are probably used to associating with apartments, so it may take some time to register what is weird about the sound of running water in a building half of which has been missing for the past 20 years. And when that realization hits you, there is no escaping it. For now though, you still have the guidance of Khan, who is able to answer some questions but raises even more in the process. He explains that some kind of battle took place in this tunnel, which isn't really explained in the game, but in the book it's revealed that he took part in the battle for Polis, the capital of the Metro, a notoriously brutal war, probably taking place sometime during the 2020s. Despite all of that, Khan remains one of the most mysterious characters in the game. He knows things he isn't supposed to, and in one way or another can interact with the dead. Or it could very well be that he is completely out of his mind. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. An interesting theory I've heard is that he is either a hallucination or a mental construct created by the Dark Ones. But the rest of the game kills this hypothesis pretty quickly, since he is mentioned multiple times by the others. Interesting character though still. However, soon after you get separated from him as well. Khan stays behind to help with the defense of Curse Station, which has been having the Nosalis problem for a very long time now. Artyom makes his way to the smithy, where he is supposed to meet one of Khan's friends, Andrei the blacksmith. As it turns out, however, the station is under communist control, and as such, nothing bad ever happens there. The revolutionary force did try to kill me for the crime of existing, but I deserved it anyway. Andrew the blacksmith makes the necessary arrangements to smuggle you into the front line of the battle, raging between the Red Line and the Fourth Reich. Good one, game. Don't you just love it when your games put before you an Easter egg you've already seen 200 or 300 times? While the people upstairs are lamenting about having to eat cyanide pills in case they get captured by the fucking Nazis, doesn't ruin the mood at all.
What? But God forbid suicide.
Eventually, just as we're about to escape, we're captured by the Nazis, who waste a ridiculous amount of time before pulling the trigger, allowing you to be Ranger Ex Machina out of the situation.
One thing I like about the bad guys, there's always a lot of discussion before they get around to pulling the trigger.
Being aware about it doesn't make it any more okay, game. This is going to be your first proper introduction to the Rangers, ever since Hunter in the beginning. You show them Hunter's dog tags, and they agree to help you go to Polis. The Rangers are the closest faction to what can be considered as the good guys in the Metro. They are made up of a relatively small number of people, owing to the strict hiring procedures, and as such they have gathered a bit of a reputation in the Metro factions, some believing them to be superhuman even. They work independently of the other main factions, and their self-assigned mission is to keep the Metro safe from outside and inside invaders. Their leader is Miller, the very same man Artyom was tasked with finding in the beginning of his journey, and these two are Pavel and Ullman. Pavel promises Artyom he will get him to Polis, and they get on the rail car. Before that though, if you take the smallest detour, you can find a pair of night vision goggles. They are powered by your main battery and can fully illuminate the darkness without giving your position away. They're also the reason why most of my footage after this looks like this, so that's nice. Next is pretty much a shooting gallery. I don't have much to say about this, so we'll just move on. At the end of that little misadventure, Pavel is killed by Nosalysis, making him the second person having been killed while escorting Artyom. We still forge on though, as we always do, towards our next destination, Black Station, which is the same one we're supposed to rendezvous with Ullman in. And on the way to that we come across Hole Station, which is on the brink of being overrun by Nosalysis. Artyom offers his help, but a psychic attack finally overwhelms the defenses. He wakes up to a desolated frontline, with only the commander being alive enough to entrust us his final wish: go to the surface and broadcast a message to Polis. This is the first side mission you're gonna get, and it's not too large of a detour anyway, so let's accept it. While exploring the desolate Hole Station, you come across Sasha, a little boy mourning the death of his uncle, later revealed to be the son of the station leader. Artyom takes him on his back and traipses on. I have seen people hate on this part, but I think it's pretty nice. Its kinks mostly come from the fact that the enemies here are completely insufferable and the one-hit kill holes in the ground, but Sasha himself is quite useful. He may make Artyom much slower and the controls much floatier, but he also shouts out enemies where they appear, and is a nice addition, despite being voiced by the same actor as every other kid in the game.
I'll have to help you, or we'll both get eaten.
However, most importantly, the story uses him to make a point about the kids in the Metro. You may wonder how they see the world, since they haven't had the chance to see the surface yet, what they're afraid of, what they dream of. You are shown glimpses of this previously, when the kids are drawing monsters instead of Sonic or something. To be honest, I brushed it off as an interesting nicety before, but now the game reveals a much more profound point to make about the kids in the Metro.
That's the sky, isn't it? It's like a painted ceiling. I'll be famous. I saw the sky.
You merely adopted to this shit, but they were born in it. They're not afraid of monsters. It is their normal down here. Where a lip-tart kid of today would have filled his vegan diapers, Sasha over here is straight up guiding you through the level, either oblivious to or accepting the risk he's in. It may just sound like a small interaction in a small level, but it's exactly touches like that create the impression that there is something worth fighting for here. That the Metro is not just a bunch of crazy people trying to kill each other all of the time. After some interesting platforming, you make it to where the few survivors have retreated, and then out into the surface again, which this time is infested by the Nazis. I'm not going to bore you with this part, so we will just move on. The bottom line is, after escaping the Nazis, you meet Ullman once again, and from here it's a straight shot to Polis. Ah yes, finally, here we are, the capital of your world, and the final destination of Artyom's journey. As it turns out, Polis is run by a bunch of, and I quote, useless pussy-ass bitches, who did believe what Artyom told them, but basically responded with, damn, that's tough. Good luck, by the way. However, the leader, Miller, being aware of the threat that the Dark Ones pose, suggests a different plan. Somewhere in Moscow, there is an operational nuclear facility called D6, with enough weaponry to erase the Dark Ones' hive out of the map. The problem is that we don't know where this facility is, but we can learn it, if we get into the library and steal a map. And there is a very specific reason why I use the word steal here. Hello? Good monkey? Oh shit! Do you get it, by the way? Library, source of knowledge, home to terrifying monsters called librarians who are hiding the key to restarting the apocalypse. I don't think I need to explain the symbolism here. The librarians are basically the TikTok girls of Metro, in that if you don't stare at them, they get really offended, and sometimes the same happens even if you do stare at them. By the way, this mechanic doesn't exist in the book, they just made it up for this game, and you got to appreciate the extra mile they went to with the animations once you look at the librarians for long enough. enough. I remember the first time I went through the library being completely petrified with fear, but the reality is that enemies here have very clear rules. All you need to do is not rush it. And if you feel your patience running thin, nothing is really stopping you from just killing them all, with your massive arsenal you must have collected by now. I don't mean this as a compliment, by the way. You've been shooting shit for the entire journey until here, so I would have really appreciated it if the game made the librarians much tougher or just didn't allow the player to have enough ammo in the first place. Look, even if you have all the ammo maxed out once you enter here, I suggest that you just pretend you don't and play the level the way it was probably meant to be played. There are some truly tense moments here, like when you're staring at a librarian and at the same time hearing the footsteps of another at your side, being unable to turn and look at them because you know for a fact that the one in front of you will make you into minced meat once you do. It's great, I love it. And it doesn't really overstay its welcome either. After some challenges, Artyom makes it to the basement of the library and finally gets a hold of the documents they need to find D6. After joining your brothers in a church turned base for the Rangers, a small group heads to the military facility to activate it and end the threat of the Dark Ones for good. After fighting what I can only assume to be a fetish or something, at last you manage to reactivate the nuclear reactor powering D6, and all that is left now is to find a vantage point high enough and nuke them fuckers. So as we make it up the tower, you might be asking, this seems like quite a philosophical game. Doesn't it have a problem with you using the same exact weapons that brought humanity almost to extinction on a sentient species? And my answer to that is, I never mentioned the Dark Ones are sentient. Stop spoiling my video. Well. Now that cat is out of the bag, I suppose I'm gonna have to admit that I didn't tell you everything there is to know about the Dark Ones. So far, I have described your interactions with them as malevolent psychic attacks, usually done to weaken a group of people before a horde of Nosalises tears into them. But I lied. Artyom gets these visions throughout the game, which slowly go from being barely comprehensible to a direct message relayed to Artyom.
Wicked phenomenon, yes? But, you know, it's not any more evil than, say, fire. It all depends on your point of view. Try to get a better understanding of things before you make your judgment.
It turns out that all of these visions weren't just mushroom-induced delirium states, but rather a genuine attempt of communication from the Dark Ones, which they tried on the few other people with non-ideal results. Artyom, however, is familiar with the Brainrot, and he can decipher it, something that was made painfully clear to you ever since you reached Riga in the beginning. But on the other hand, you also see the destruction caused by the Dark One's psychic influence firsthand. The sight of people dying, or worse, thanks to the moments of stupefaction caused by the Dark Ones, should hardly leave your mind. But to be really honest with you, we don't really know why this happened. Was it intentional? And if it was, why don't the Dark Ones try to kill Artyom as well, but are instead trying to convince him to forfeit his mission? They even take you to the past in some select moments to remind you of what the world was like before the nukes fell. Are you really willing to do the same to creatures you don't even understand? So there is enough ambiguity here that if you stop and pay attention, could make you question your mission entirely. And this is where the multiple endings come in, and with it, the morality system. Metro 2033 has two endings. The good ending sees Artyom deciding not to shoot the missile targeting system from the tower, thus not allowing the strike to go through. And the bad ending, which, much like the book, sees the Dark Ones completely destroyed. Except in this one, Artyom doesn't seem to question himself too much. What ending you get depends on your actions throughout the game, as well as the final decision you have to make. So far, when you did certain things, you may have noticed a flash of light. This adds a morality point, and steers you towards the good ending. The morality systems in the Metro games always works like this. There is very rarely an instance when you pick between an obviously good and an obviously bad action. Your morality score is always hidden, and is a consequence of a way of playing, and not a conscious decision to pick the good or the bad ending, at least for the first playthrough, because this is a game that you are probably expected to finish only once anyway. The game rewards you for playing in a more enlightened way, i.e. the way Artyom would. Except the problem here is that Artyom did play this game in the books, and even with the added context there, he still didn't decide to spare the Dark Ones. So you are basically given here the option to do something that didn't even occur to Artyom after a whole game of playing like he would. I don't hate the endings of 2033. In fact, it's not completely unfeasible that he would have come to his senses before pulling his trigger at the end. Or maybe he needed to see the missiles to fall to truly understand what he was doing. who knows. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the endings have one very small problem that could even be a non-issue, but I'm gonna try to fix it anyway. You can't stop me, you clicked on this video 15 minutes ago. Instead of having one ending where Artyom kills the Dark Ones and one when he doesn't, I suggest that this game should have had one ending where the Dark Ones manage to stop Artyom and trick him into falling off the bridge, and the other one where he completes his mission. In this way we can avoid the banal distinction between the good and bad ending, but most importantly we can tie the endings directly to the morality system, because as the Dark Ones saw Artyom give to the poor, spare people he could have easily killed, save prisoners, be friendly to other Dark Ones, and display a genuine enjoyment of the finer things in life, they believed that in the end he would forgive them. However, Artyom never intended to give up on his mission. In the end he fires the missiles anyway, catching the Dark Ones by surprise, who do manage to give Artyom a final message. It is here that he understands the crime he committed, but now it's too late. On the flip side, if you decide to mow down hordes of people, steal and stumble like an oaf for the whole game, the Dark Ones understand quickly enough that they are dealing with a psychopath and use their full psychic powers to put an end to his designs before he is able to set up the targeting system. Thus, the Dark Ones survive, but Artyom dies, making it a more ambiguous ending. This, however, would still be completely counter to how the Dark Ones are portrayed in the book, since they never outright try to kill Artyom, even after he already commits to his decision. Either way, both the endings and the morality system are a nice addition to the game, which means I essentially wasted a whole page of my script talking about something that is essentially just a tiny nitpick. So instead of embarrassing myself further by extending this giant ass script even more, I might as well finish up real quick and give my... In the end, Metro 2033 is a very solid effort. In fact, I would go as far as to say that it's a great one, especially for a first game. The shooting feels smooth even to this day, despite some clunky animations, and the graphics still hold up, even though the remaster came out over 10 years ago now. This allows the atmosphere to be as thick as in the book, which I really appreciate, though I would definitely have less in the way of Easter eggs. The only two things which have considerably aged are the weapon sounds and the acting, to be honest. It's not like it's bad or anything, just kind of dated. They were really budget constrained on this one, so I'm not gonna be too harsh on that front. Metro 2033 to me feels like a demo, but I don't mean that as an insult. It's more like a strong foundation, a proof of concept if you will, for something greater. There are gameplay elements that feel tragically underexplored, like the hentai tentacles, the armored spiders that burn in the light, the librarians, and the shadows in Ghost Station. You get brief glimpses of these during con segments and then they sort of vanish forever. It's not like these ideas are undercooked, they're just squeezed into a game that is surprisingly short. Too short to fully breathe even. Get it? Even the ending feels like a setup, like the game is telling you that it's only the beginning of something much larger, both narratively and mechanically. Oh my god, I think that means I have to make a video about Last Light too.